Nearly 60% of all Indian international students to Canada are from Punjab province. Why is it that the majority of Indian international students are from this one province? What makes Punjab province so particular and unique for Canada? In this video, I'm going to attempt to unpack this with as much genuine curiosity as I can so that we can understand a little bit more about this and then also tell our governments what we want to see for the future of Canada. Now, for those that are inquiring, no, I am not an Indian international student and I'm not from Punjab province, but I am the son of economic immigrants who came to Canada in the 1980s. And I know very well what it's like to be in an immigrant family where you're really struggling just to survive, and there's a high premium on education above literally all else. So when I started digging into this, I thought, oh, the families are sending their kids for education, but it's not the case at all. They're actually sending their children for purely survival reasons. Let me explain. So in Punjab province, there's this notion that's very well accepted that once you finish grade 12, you get out of Punjab province. You get out of India completely. Your path is on migration and migration only. So in order to facilitate this, parents will literally take out major loans to send their kid abroad, tens of thousands of dollars. And throughout Punjab province, there are agents who are literally helping these students facilitate their move to countries like Canada. Let's step back for a moment. Imagine you're 18 years old. Your parents are taking on tens of thousands of dollars of debt for you to, say, leave your home country to go abroad. The pressure that you're under already is immense. And typically the destinations for many of these students who come to Canada are in Brampton, Mississauga, the GTHA, or Surrey in BC, where there are thriving Punjabi communities already. And let's not forget, Canada made this very easy. You received a study permit, then there was a post-work graduation permit, and then there was a pathway to permanent residency right here in Canada. Before, there was a higher percentage of students coming here that were landing permanent residency. So the pathway to permanent residency, citizenship, sponsoring their family from Punjab province was very high, comparatively speaking. And Canada since has made things a bit more challenging, but these were some of the reasons why students were selecting Canada over other countries. But there are a series of push factors that are pushing these students out of Punjab province, which I want to briefly touch upon. First, inside Punjab province, there is agrarian depression. Not enough investment is happening inside Punjab province for agriculture. And so this means that there's just less employment opportunities for young people. And that leads to a lot of sky-high unemployment as well. And so many students just feel like they don't really have a future inside their own home. And as you can imagine, like anywhere else in the world, when there's high youth unemployment, drugs and alcohol are soon to follow. Drug use in Punjab province is a very high and prominent issue, which is why migrating out of Punjab province is seen as a great idea for many parents and families to get their kids out of high unemployment towards a country full of prosperity. And then there's cultural prestige. There is this idea of cultural prestige, sending your kid abroad to study in countries like the UK or Canada or the United States. There's an honor associated. It's hard to describe, but really it's for families to say to others that, hey, my son or daughter, they're in Toronto, they're trying to make a life of themselves, and eventually they're going to finish their degree and sponsor all of us to get out of Punjab province. One recent scholar said that migration is not an opportunity, it's the expectation. And again, for us Canadians, it's really hard for us to understand, at least for me. I can't imagine at 18 or 19 years old thinking that migrating out of Toronto is the expectation, not an opportunity. But on the Canadian side, we're pulling in students. We're marketing ourselves. There are agents, there are colleges that are in Punjab province right now, and there are a series of pull factors Canada is undertaking to get students to come here too. First, let's talk about our colleges. Some of our colleges are marketing their programs directly in Punjab province to students. Now, this is actually unprecedented. I don't believe there are many places in the world where Canadian colleges do exactly this. Now, this is where it gets tricky. See, there's so many agents in India that are facilitating students to get into these colleges in Canada and facilitate the entire movement, these pathways, pipelines, if you will. Some say it's hard to walk a few blocks in Punjab province without finding an agent that will facilitate your move to Canada. Now, the reason for this is because they're marketing specific programs that give them higher commissions. So it could be that a student is really good at political science or the humanities, but because the program of IT or business potentially gets that agent a higher commission, the student will shift gears and focus specifically on business or IT as an example. And so this creates a bit of a distorted marketplace. Students are no longer focused on what their interests are. They're focused on what gets them the best way to get to Canada. And agents are very much a part of this, selling them specific programs to get them there based on commission. I didn't know this, but there used to be something called the Student Direct Stream, SDS, that was shut down in November 2024. This promised a fast track of approvals of applications, I think within 20-ish days or so. And this allowed a lot more students to come to Canada through these very, very specific programs. Again, this program was shut down in November, making it harder for international students to apply. But of course, there's a real dark side to all of this, with the students caught right in the middle. Now, as mentioned at the outset, families are taking out loans, big loans for them, tens of thousands of dollars, mortgaging their farmland just to send their kids to a better future in countries like Canada. But what happens is these students enter into these private colleges that look like diploma mills in these generic programs of business and IT. And upon graduation, the academic degree doesn't hold much merit or weight. So when they go out and try to apply to larger firms, chances are they're being turned down because they're competing with students from more prestigious universities. And so the students end up staying in the periphery job market. They end up staying in Ubers and Lyfts much longer. They end up staying in condo security and other low-paying jobs just to get by. Now remember, as they come to Canada, they're living in these rooming houses, single-family dwellings that have been converted into multiple rooms for international students, maybe paying $400 or $600 a month. And so as Indian international students start realizing that they have spent 3-4 years at an institution that doesn't hold much academic merit, they're then caught. They're in Canada much longer than they had thought at the work permit level. There's not really a pathway to permanent residency, and it's getting more and more difficult just to get ahead and save their money. And these private colleges that are popping up all over the country, they're so dependent on this pipeline of students coming from India to Canada. Mark Carney's Liberals have capped the number of study permits. I believe they've actually upped the amount of money parents have to show when these students come to Canada as well. And of course, proficiency in English and French, they're probably going to heighten their proficiency requirements because, Canadians are noticing that this is actually becoming a big issue, especially as these students are coming to Canada, working in the periphery job market and front-facing customer service representatives with low English skills. This becomes a real challenge for many Canadians interacting with students. So what this means is the easy routes agents once had for Punjabi students to come to Canada, well, they're drying up. The idea of permanent residency may not always be guaranteed, and proficiency in English becomes more and more higher and more of a big requirement. So what happens now? Where do we go from here? Well, before I close this video out, I just want a word from our sponsor, Welch Coffee. In these economic uncertain times with U.S.-Canada relations, it's really good to know there are coffee shops and coffee companies that are locally roasted right here in Toronto and in Canada. Welch Coffee is an amazing product, and I'm one who's very picky on coffee. And let me tell you, their cold brew espresso is so smooth. So if you are in Canada and you want to try Welch Coffee out, click the link below for 15% off your order with my code OPENMIND. Again, Welch Coffee, locally roasted right here in Toronto, and let's support local as much as we can. Now back to the video. So where do we go from here? Does the Canadian dream get more and more expensive and more challenging for Punjabi students to think about? I think that could be part of it, but I can't deny that that has rippling effects. I don't have all the answers, but what I do know is we've gone down a path as a country where we've embraced temporary foreign workers and international students to unprecedented levels, perhaps than many other countries in the world. And going back on that may actually make us less desirable of a nation as a country, but it also poses challenges for us as a nation. I've mentioned in a previous video, we have a very low birth rate and a very high aging population. We need young people in this country, and we do have a robust economic immigration stream that brings in 300 to 400,000 people every year. But the government clearly knows that's just not enough to keep us competitive. And so I think a rethink of our temporary foreign worker program is in fact needed. But of course, there are risks and challenges with that as well. Has Canada just opened ourselves up to a pathway that we're not too sure what the end goal is anymore? And can we actually go back on what we've already embarked upon? So if you like this video, you will definitely like my last video I did on why half of international students, almost half, are coming from India to Canada, or my other video on how the CBC receives billions of dollars in funding despite trust issues with Canadians, or my other video that I did about lessons we can learn from 2020. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll definitely catch you in the next one.